Okay, so question 1, we want to use a calculator or otherwise to evaluate each of the following expressions. So we have two. We have this one that worth 2 marks, and we have the first one that worth just 1 mark. All right, so let me just rewrite that a little better. So that's going to be 3/2 squared minus 1 plus 6. So how do we do that? Well, we want to square 3/2, so we multiply it by itself. So what this implies, a square implies that we're multiplying 3/2 by itself. And we can look at how many factors of 3/2 we have. 1, 2. That's what the 2 implies here. Not that we're multiplying by 2, but that we have 2 of these multiplying. Okay. And of course, if you want to keep it in bracket, now 3 3s is 9, 2 2s is 4, minus 1 plus 6, that's actually plus 5. How I got that? If you were to rearrange them, put the 6 in front, it would be 6 minus 1, 5. And another way to think about it is that we have more positive than negatives. So once we have the opposite signs, we subtract, get 5, and we keep the sign that has more. And so we have more in terms of the quantity before the sign. We have more positive. We have 6 positives and only 1 negative. So our answer will be in positive. Now we want to convert this. 4 into 9 goes how many times? Twice. Remainder 1 over 4. Then we add 5. So what is our final answer? Add the whole numbers. 2 plus 5, that gives us 7. Add back the fraction. 7 plus a quarter is 7 1/4. 1 mark. Again, you could simply use your calculator. Okay. If I were to punch that in the calculator, as you can see, it will be, let's do that. Open bracket, 3 divided by 2, square the answer, minus 1 plus 6. You see you're going to get 29 over 4. If you check this, 4 7s 28, plus 1, 29 over 4. So this is okay, or we could write it as 29 over 4. Or we could also write it as 7.25. That's another form. We can press the SD button, and we can see that it converts it to 7.25 as well. Let's move on to the next one. So this one, let's write it clearer. It's 2.1 times 10 over 7 plus 12 divided by 1 3/5. Now, I can put the 2.1 over 1. 2.1 times 10 is 21 divided by 7, because 1 times 7 is 7, plus 12. Now, it's important to convert mixed numbers to improper fraction when you have division or multiplication. So let's do that. 5 1's 5 plus 3, that's 8 over 5. Now, 21 divided by 7 is just 3. The 7 goes into 21 exactly 3 times. We're dividing these two quantities. Remember to always leave addition for last, okay? Based on BODMAS, the order of operation. I'm going to put back the 12. Let's put it as a fraction over 1. All right. So leave it as a fraction, as in 12 over 1, rather. We're going to change division to multiplication, reciprocate the 8 over 5, meaning interchange the numerator and denominator. So dividing by 8/5 is the same as if you're multiplying by the reciprocal, 5/8. Now, what I want to do here, when you're multiplying, you can actually simplify a numerator with a denominator as long as you have a common factor higher than 1. If you look at 12 and 8, 2 can enter them. Yes. Also, 4 can enter both of them. So we're going to use the highest common factor. So 4 goes into 8 twice. 4 goes into 12 3 times. And so this will give us, let's simplify this further. Let's put back the 3 plus, now let's simplify the multiplication before we do addition. 3 times 5 is 15. 1 times 2 is 2. And so this is going to be 3 plus, now we want a whole number because this is 15 halves. So we can get certain amount of whole numbers in this. 2 goes into 15 how many times? 7 times. In other words, 2 sevens, 14, plus 1, 15. Add in the whole numbers, 3 plus 7, that's 10. Add the half, that's 10 and a half, which we can also write it as 21 over 2. In other words, 2 tenths 20 plus 1, 21 over 2. We can write it like that, or we can write it as 10.5. Either will be okay. All right, you can write it as 21 over 2 as well. Okay, so we are told that Miranda earns $8,316 per month. She spends 4/7 of that earnings on utility bills, food, and personal items, and saves the remainder. Now we ask, what percentage of her monthly salary does she save? Now we're looking for the percentage of it that she saves. So, do we need to use the $8,316 that she earns in our calculation? Not necessarily, no. Why? Because we're told the fraction that she spends of that earnings is 4/7. Okay, so if she spends 4/7, that means she saves what amount? So let's look at what she saves. What she saves is equal to the whole, right? The whole minus the what she spends, right? You'll see what I mean. Whole as in a whole number, as in one whole, and she spends 4/7 of that amount. And so we can actually change this to 7/7, right? 7/7 is still 1, right? So that allows us to subtract 4/7 from it, which give us 3/7. And you should be able to do that in your head. If she spends 4/7, what is the amount that she would have saved of the whole? Well, 4/7, if I take 4/7 from a whole, I will leave back with 3/7. But now remember, they want the percentage of of the amount that she saved, right? So what we do, we take the fraction and we convert it to percentage by multiplying it by 100%. Whenever you want to convert a fraction to percentage, you simply multiply by 100%. And that will give us, we have to round it off to 1 decimal place, right? Goes on. So if I were to take 3/7, let's see. 3 divided by 7 and multiply by 100. You see we get 42.85, etc. Again, if you have a calculator in mind, you need to press this SD button, right? Standard to decimal. So it's 42.85, etc. So to 1 decimal place, we check the next digit, the decider. It's in the category of 5 or more, so we have to add 1 to the 8, so it's 42.9%. All right, let's move on to the next question. The next question tells us that the portion of our earnings spent on utility bills, food, and personal items is divided in the ratio 5 to 3 to 4, respectively. And we are to calculate the amount of money she spends on personal items. So let's look at that information we're given. The portion of our earnings spent on utility bills, food, personal items, etc. So I'm seeing the ratio there, which is, let's take a look at that. We have utility bills, we have food, and we have personal items in the ratio 5 to 3 to 4. So we have a total amount. We have a total of what? 5 plus 3 is 8 plus 4 is 12. We have 12 parts, right? So the portion of our earnings spent on all of these 3 things is divided into 12 parts. Okay? the amount of our earnings, or the portion of our earnings spent on these three things. So what we need to know is the portion of our earnings spent altogether. All right, so portion of our earnings spent. The portion of our earnings spent, we're told is, let's go back to the top to see that information. We're told is 4/7. So it's 4/7 of her monthly earnings. And our monthly earnings, we're told, is $8,316, right? This is given to us in the statement earlier. Miranda earns $8,316 per month, and it's 4/7 of that amount that she spends on these three things. So we find 4/7 of this amount, right? So of this amount, she spends 4/7. And when we multiply that in our calculator, we get $4,752. This is the amount she spends of her salary. This amount she spends, and the remaining amount of this she saves. But let's focus on the amount she spent, which is this. We're told that this amount is divided into 12 parts. 5 parts go to bills, 3 parts go to food, and 4 parts go to personal items. So 4 parts of this goes to personal items. 4 parts of the total of 12 parts. So we're going to put it like this. 4 parts of the 12 parts of the amount spent on all of them goes to personal items. So if we calculate that, this will give us the amount spent on personal items. Let's see what amount that is. So we put 4 divided by 12 times 47.52, and that's give us 15.84. $1,584. All right, so now we're told that Miranda saves the same amount of money each month. Show that her annual savings from her earnings is $42,768. Okay, so we can approach this 2 ways. How would you approach the question though? What would you do? All right, so here's what I'm going to do. I can look at the amount that she earns, which is monthly, 83,000 or $80,316 rather, and then subtract the amount she spends, and that will give us the amount, and then we'll be back with the amount she saves, right? We can take that approach. So let's do that. So the amount she spends, the amount she earns is $8,316. That's our earnings. And the amount she spends monthly, we calculated that earlier. That amount is, that's 47.52. Okay, amount she earns minus the amount she spends, give us the amount she saves, right? That would be the amount she saves. All right, so let's calculate that. 83.16 minus 47.52, and the amount that she saves is 35.64. That's $3,564 in savings monthly, right? This is monthly. So what they want us to do is to show that our annual savings from our earnings is this amount, 42,768. So if she saves this amount monthly, then yearly, I would say annual, right, savings. Our annual savings will be equal to our monthly savings times 12, because there are 12 months in a year. And so that will be $3,564 times 12, which I already have that amount in my calculator, times 12, 42,768. right? Proven. They want us to show that amount, so we have done that. Another way we could have done this is simply to take what? 3/7, 3 divided by 7, 3/7, that's the amount she saves. 3/7 if she spends 4/7, and then we find 3/7 of the amount that she earns monthly, 3/7 of that she saves. We get the same 35.64. Could have done that way. Then we simply multiply by the 12, get our answer right away. Pretty straightforward stuff. Now, she invests $42,768 in a credit union, which earns compound interest 5% per annum. What is the total interest earned after 2 years? She invests the $42,768. That's the amount she saves every year, right? She saves that amount annually, $42,768. Now she puts this amount, $42,768, in a credit union, and they pay her compound interest of 5% every year on that amount. Well, on the money she invested initially. So they want to know what the total interest is after 2 years, the interest that she would have earned. Now here we have a compound interest formula. Let's write it better, or clearer, I should say. 1 plus r over 100 to the nth power. Okay, that's the formula. A represents the amount in the account after n number of years. The P represents the amount that would have been invested initially. So we can calculate the amount, the final amount, by taking that same amount she invested, 42,768, put the 1 plus, the rate is 5%, we were told, so the R here represent that 5, and the percent goes as divided by 100, okay? So they're saying 5 per 100 or 5%. And then we have the 2 years. They can punch this entire thing in the calculator just as it is. We already have the 42,000 in our calculator. So we just simply press open bracket after that amount. So what I'm going to do here, I have the answer there. So I'm going to put open bracket. Well, let's get back our answer. Press open bracket. You know what? That might confuse some of you. So let's put 42,768, open bracket, 1 plus 5 divided by 100, close bracket, and then we put to the second power. So all we need to look for this x squared to get the second power. All right, and that's what we have. Press equal. We get $47,151.72. So let's put that in. So the amount after 2 years in the account will be $47,151.72. Now, the thing about it is this. This is the amount in the account after 2 years. This amount that she invested, and it accumulated to this amount. So what amount did the bank add to this in order to bring it to this amount at the end of 2 years? Well, we can if we find the difference between them, that will give us the amount the bank would have added on, correct? That amount we call the interest. So the interest, the total interest, is equal to the final amount minus the amount at the beginning, called the principal. And so once we subtract those, we will get the interest added on. So we're going to take the amount that we had there, the total at the end of 2 years, subtract the amount that was invested to find out the amount that was added on. Once you get something like this, you need to press this SD button, right? All right, and that's going to give us 4383.72. So that's $4,383.72 that was added as interest. Question 1.